It is 6:30 p.m. and this meeting of the Board of Education is now called to order. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening and make certain that all our board members are connected. Terry.
Yes.
Thank you. Celeste.
Yes.
Thank you. Rusty.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Bo.
Yep, here, Randy.
And Keith.
Yes.
Thanks, Keith. Kurt Draper sends his regrets this evening, will not be attending our meeting. I'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance on behalf of the board. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we need to approve our agenda for this evening. Are there any changes to the agenda as presented?
Nothing from me, Randy.
Very good then. Can we have a motion, please, to approve our agenda?
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the agenda as printed.
I
I
second.
second.
Thank you for the second. This is a roll call vote, please, Barb.
Mr. Droppers. Oh, I'm sorry, he's not here. Mr. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Rathford,
Yes.
Dr. Shelton Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Van Antwerp,
Yes.
Mrs. Novaria,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder.
Yes.
Very good. The agenda is approved and we'll go right to our report section and I'll turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, sir. Ron is a little bit under the weather this evening, so I'll be covering for him today. So with the bond project update, things are still progressing at the natatorium. Most of the work now is being done indoors around the pool area and some of the mechanicals. So that work continues on schedule and with an anticipated opening sometime in June of this year. So we're looking forward to that. And at basically the other, at West Middle School, we still have some punch list items we're waiting for. Most of that is the kind of the holdup on that is because of some supply chain issues, but things are getting closer to completion and we look forward to the date when we can close those projects out. So things are moving on, and unless you have any questions, I'll move on to a couple of other small items.
Thanks,
All
Mark.
right, seeing none. Just kind of just a review here of a couple of things. One is, remote board meetings are still required by boards. There was some loosening of the requirements earlier this month. However, based on some of the Open Meetings Act requirements and capacity issues, I think we'll have to continue to have our next meeting, the regular meeting in March, still remotely. After that, we'll have to go face to face, and there are some new rules that come into play there. So we have reserved the auditorium at Northern High School for the board meeting in April. We only have one, as a reminder, in April. And then also, if you could put on your calendars, if you haven't done so already, we have a special board meeting scheduled for May the 3rd. That'll be the first Monday in May. That's the week before the regular or the work session scheduled for May 10th. So if you could get that on your calendars, and we'll be, hopefully if things stay the way they are, we'll be meeting face to face, but we'll still have to, there's still gathering limitations for no matter what venue we choose. So we will have to have provisions in place for remote participation by audience members at those meetings. So we'll keep informed on that. So the reason for that special meeting on May 3rd is to hear the results of the survey that we're engaged in. As you know, we've contracted with Perspectives Consulting Group to conduct a community survey, very similar to the one that was conducted last spring, as we're considering our elementary facilities. So Gary has prepared that survey. is finishing that up. I know some of you have seen that, or I guess you've all seen that survey and had an opportunity to chime in with any of your thoughts on that and share those with Gary. And he's processing those probably as we speak, and we'll be getting a draft to me within the next day or two for final review before it goes public. So for the community, just know that we will be conducting an online survey that'll be available through our website. If people don't have access to technology, there will be paper copies available at the administration building. That survey will open up to the public on March 17th and run through March 30th. And then those results will be compiled and shared with the board on May 3rd in advance of the decision about what to do with our remaining elementary facilities that need to be addressed. So looks like a good survey, a good tight timeline, and looking forward to participating in that. So are there any questions from board members on the survey or timeline? So as you know, kind of the part that was the good news is that we're able to generate the 175.6, I think it was, $1 million without increasing the millage rate, and so that simplifies the survey questions that will be asked. It's really it's a great opportunity to address our remaining facility needs in a timely manner as we're finishing up these current projects. So we look forward to administering the survey and getting the results back. The last thing I'll mention is we had the pleasure of hosting the Lieutenant Governor on Friday. It was rather short notice to us. He was doing a tour of West Michigan and had visited a bridge project up in the Grand Rapids area, stopped to see us at Portage North Middle School, and then went over to the Expo Center to see how the vaccination process was moving along. He didn't spend much time with us. He spent a half hour with us and really wanted to get an understanding of how our return to learn plan was working, in particular, how we were serving those students who were coming back in face-to-face, those that were staying remote. Several members of our administrative staff were able to meet with him, building level principals included. We also had Senator McCann and Representative Morse, attended, and then he was able to tour, not get a complete tour of the middle school, but he was able to visit a classroom of one of our teachers who happened to be working with a student, and he was able to engage with the student virtually and ask us questions about the things we were doing to educate our students. So it was a quick visit, but much appreciated that we were on his radar to talk to. And as Randy was there representing the board, he made himself available and had a chance to chime in. Kind of an interesting aside is that two of our staff members that were there had connections with the Lieutenant Governor back from their days at U of M. So it was kind of almost like a little get together for them as they met with us. And I didn't realize that there was that connection until just before the visit. So it was nice to see that. I think that's all I have for things that aren't on the agenda. So be happy to answer any questions if you have them. Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to you, Randy.
Any questions for Mark? Okay, we'll go to board education, and it is our work study, and that's time again for an update on the extended COVID-19 learning plan.
I'll turn this over to Dr. Pasco and the CIA department. Kelly and Mike are with him. So, Michael, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Beelang. Good evening, trustees. Tonight we'll be presenting on another monthly COVID-19 extended learning plan for your reconfirmation. We're going to look at some of the Kalamazoo County and regional health status. We'll look at our K-12 instructional programming. We're also going to give specific percentages of face-to-face as well as virtual learners for each of our buildings K-12. We'll look at the attendance data, how we're moving towards our goals, and look at what that professional learning looks like for the remainder of the school year. Let's start by looking at the current health data. As of today, we see consistent decreases in our positive testing rate within Kalamazoo County. Continues to provide us with more stability and safety as we engage in our face-to-face programming. Regionally, we are now at level D and have a 7-day new case average of 24 cases. Currently have 0 outbreaks in PPS now that Central L is have our staff and students back as of this morning. So we'll continue to look at this data as well as our matrix as the vaccines continue to be given. And as of this Wednesday, all PPS staff who wish to receive the vaccine will have had that opportunity to do so. I know a bunch of us will be getting that second shot this Wednesday. So I'll now hand it over to Ms. Jensenius. Kelly, if you want to give us an update on the elementary programming.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Pasco. Good evening, Superintendent Beeling and trustees. I just want to take a few moments to share with you our current elementary programming. We have been staying consistent with our using our PPS curriculum 4 days a week. With that 5th day, our students are participating in standards-based asynchronous activities at home, using those grade level packets and choice boards, both in face-to-face and virtual modes of learning. Our KVIC students continue to participate in their virtual asynchronous programming. That is a partnership with KRESA. And we do have our 2 teachers that deliver that Lincoln Learning curriculum to those students. And of course, in all our programming, support services are being provided for students have been identified as needing tiered support, as well as those with IEPs, 504s, and English learners. Next slide is here. I wanted to provide, we had just finished our winter screening in our K-5 Acadience and Dibbles data. Acadience is what it is called now. We had set our original goal at the in August at 60%, which we've talked about in the past year. And as you're looking at this, you can see that we are going to, or we surpassed that goal in all grade levels. And we are looking to meet our typical goal of 80% at or above grade level. That is what we're aiming to do. We know to achieve that level of progress, all of our teams need to be working together. And just this last Friday, we were digging into this data with their buildings. So each grade team at each building set measurable goals and action steps that they will continue to collaborate around and develop this Friday with our PD and within their weekly PLCs. Our district literacy coach, Courtney Huff, has been working with the elementary admin team to plan robust professional learning around the connections between our priority standards that we have picked and the Michigan essential literacy practices that our state has deemed very important and research-based to get our kids to do work around. And so we know this work is going to directly impact our students' progress in reading throughout those content areas. We also know our teachers, our students, and families have been navigating a lot throughout this entire year, and we are extremely proud of all their hard work and effort in everything they're doing. And so when you look at these numbers, sometimes, you know, we want more, but we know they have been giving so much and working so hard. So we always have to remember the numbers aren't telling the whole story of everything that's happening out there, and that it's a lot that they're navigating, and we couldn't be prouder. Next up, though, what I want to take a look at is, as of today, this is where we're at overall as a district with a percentage of students in each of our modes of learning. And over the next several slides, you'll be able to see this broken down by building. But as you can see here, we have a range of students attending face-to-face. So from 24.5% at high school to 40.2% at the middle school level, and then 67.1% at elementary level. So you can kind of see how that our face-to-face students are as it is right now. And if we go to the next slide, we start to see with elementary, if we break that down across each of the buildings, you're able to see the number of students at each building in each mode of instruction. So when you take a look across there, you can see face-to-face, Amberley is at 61.1%, and you can kind of go all the way across, with Lake Center being at the highest percent of 81.4% of their students back face-to-face. They started out higher at the beginning of the year, and they continue to slowly add more and more students in. Moving into fourth quarter, we'll be transitioning another 179 students back to our face-to-face instruction as of today. So we were closing that window today for parents and family members to make that choice for their kids. And that will bring us to about 72.97% of face-to-face and 27% in virtual. So that's great numbers. We're starting to see our families really getting their kids back into the buildings, but they continue, to thrive at where they're at. We continue to service them, and we will continue to keep about 30. I think we're staying at 34 elementary students in the KVIC program. Now, Dr. Pasco, I'm going to hand that back over to you to discuss secondary.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. As you guys know, since January 25th, the start of second semester, we continue to receive, students continue to receive their learning through our HyFX instructional model. So we have some students present in our classrooms while others are engaging virtually simultaneously. Fridays remain as asynchronous learning. I know there has been some questions around utilization of Fridays, so we thought we'd just show you some rationale as to why Fridays are what they are right now. They're being used for professional learning. There's a lot of teacher collaboration going on. We do provide some student intervention for those who are in need. There's instructional planning related to curriculum and assessment. And really for our students, it helps just reduce the screen time for them. And that's for all students, not just the virtual students out there. And it allows us to deep clean and sanitize our buildings. We've actually been able to avoid a few quarantine situations just by luck really on those Fridays, but they are helpful to get in there and do some deep cleaning. That time has a lot of value for our instructional staff as we continue to discuss our goals for the final quarter. Just know that Fridays are included within those conversations. When we look at secondary selections, the chart here, just like Kelly showed for elementary, shows the percentage for face-to-face and virtual learners at each of our secondary buildings. So you can see Central Middle, 47% approximately face-to-face with 53% virtual. North Middle around 40% face-to-face, 60% virtual. And then over at West, 34% in our classrooms and 66% remaining at home virtually. And then when we look at the high school, Central High, about 22% are coming in for face-to-face, while 78% are virtual. Northern High, 23% and 77%. And then over at Community with Clint, 59% face-to-face and 41% virtual. And we are under, as you see in the purple, 1% at each of our secondary buildings for students enrolled in the KVIC program. So I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Huber, give an update on our goal progress, look at some of that attendance data and what professional learning looks like for the remainder of the year. Mike?
Hi, good evening, trustees. Thanks for allowing us to bring another reconfirmation plan to you. Our 2A interaction rates for attendance stay primarily in the same place. There really has been minimal change in that big picture trend. I know that we brought you some detailed data. As we were looking at that, there have been no major changes from last month in those detailed attendance data, but we have resumed making attendance calls in many of our buildings. We had paused that practice because of a lack of surety about whether or not those were going to be aligned with true absences in our system. But we've resumed those absence calls, and we're waiting to see the impact on our overall attendance that those are going to make. We have some anecdotal evidence about parents realizing their students were less engaged than they thought. But until we have a good set of data on that, we'll bring some more details around it at our April ECLP reconfirmation for you. Wanted to share a little bit about this Friday. We have our last full day for this year for our professional learning. So we have different events happening at the elementary level. Courtney Huff and our reading specialists are, along with some KRESA staff, are planning an Ignite literacy session where we're going to move through the grade groups and do some literacy equipping with them. They'll also have some grade level goal and action plan work. So they're developing action plans based on the last 2 Fridays of professional learning for them. And our special education staff via Ann Gordon are looking at some trauma-informed classroom training with, I believe it's Jennifer Brown. She is, we're using some videos and some tools from her and some facilitation there. At secondary, we have our teams doing PLC work. We also are going to do some high flex ed camp sharing, where we bring our teachers together around a topic to process, especially related to high flex, to share practices between them. So we're facilitating some sections of that. The special ed staff are doing the trauma-informed classroom training. And then we also have our teach camp and instructional playbook sessions that are asynchronous. So this is all training that teachers have had an opportunity to do along the way, and we continue to offer that for our staff for professional learning. But that's pretty much our ECLP rate confirmation plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Mike, it's Rusty here. I just a quick question regarding the secondary. When is the window? Kids have the opportunity to come back in the fourth quarter as well, correct? Any rough idea what's going on there?
Yes, we've started the surveying around that, at least in terms of parents making some selection at the elementary level. And we're currently probably going to have the window open for middle school and high school shortly to make those arrangements to ensure we're ready to have students come back. So the plan is to start the Monday after spring break, April, I think, 4th. I might be off that day. Maybe it's April 5th on that. But the day after spring break, the 5th, we're returning.
Gotcha. Just one more thing. That 80% goal for Dibbles, I think that's great. It's amazing that kids are still learning it to that degree in this environment. So hats off to everybody and their hard work and keeping some of these scores up.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question on one of the slides that was up when Kelly was talking, and it looked like we had an outlier of face-to-face students in a very positive way at Lake Center Elementary.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious if that's likely due to demographic factors or if there was anything else weighing into that.
Oh, in terms of the number that went face to face.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It was interesting at the very beginning. Just the number of kids that started off going face to face. And I think we saw that, kids making family decisions with other kids in neighborhoods. I don't know if that was just kind of the case or what, but they just started off with higher numbers at the very beginning and they just slowly continue to creep up like everyone else's. So I just think it's an anomaly that, the parents were ready to go back and that worked out there. And then Alex McCullough has been doing an amazing job keeping everybody safe and healthy and just feeling good. So yeah, no real reason, I don't believe. So
No, thank you.
I just wanted to say I appreciate showing the enrollment by mode, by school. It's very helpful as a board member to have that understanding, and appreciate the comments on how Fridays are being utilized. And thank you to Kelly for showing that doubles data. That certainly was encouraging. And wow, it sure is obvious that everyone's working hard to make this school year work. So a big thank you, a shout out to everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, board. Thank you, trustees.
Thank you.
Any other questions from trustees? Okay, thank you. We'll move to our comments and communication section. And I don't believe we have any comments by citizens this evening. Are there any comments from board trustees, please? Okay, then we'll move to our consent agenda. Our consent agenda this evening consists of approval of meeting minutes from the February 22nd, 2021 regular business meeting. Are there any exceptions? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved as presented. And we'll now move on to item number 7 on our agenda, and that's assurance of district performance, a monitoring report on ends policy 1.2, please.
Thank you, sir. This, did you want me to report this before you took a motion, Randy, or how did?
Well, yeah, I wasn't sure anyone could hear me, so I was just looking forward to seeing a happy face. So sure. Let's have a motion, please, to approve the monitoring report. The motion is on page 14.
President Van Antwerp, I move that the Board of Education accept the monitoring report 1.2 ends as a reasonable interpretation and evidence of compliance with policy.
Thank you, Terry. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Keith. And now Mark.
All right, thank you. So this is one of those policies that the board recently made some revisions to. However, it back in December of 2020, it does not change the interpretation at this point. Plus, most of the data that's presented on this particular report is from the 1920 school year. So, so next time around, it'll be a very similar report, but there's an ability with the boards capturing 21st century skills that allows us to pick up on more skills than just those 4 skills that were in the original ends policy. I also want to mention that because of COVID-19 last spring, during the months of March, April, and May, and June, many of our students were not able to engage in many of the activities that do contribute to those skills. So we don't know the impact of that over the long term, but certainly the opportunities, especially around extracurricular activities, were not available to our students during that time of the year. So we'll have to wait to over the long term to see if there's anything that comes out of that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that the data that's presented that's based on the student engagement survey is not included. The student engagement survey is administered once a year in the fall of the year and reported on this report. We did not do the engagement survey this year. We felt it was more important to do the pulse check survey, which really was more closely aligned with our return to learn plan and what students were experiencing through that, as well as our vision for the work. So the data that we collected in the pulse check survey doesn't really translate into data that can be used for this report based on the student engagement data. As I review this report, there were really no significant changes in course selection last year, which is not surprising because courses were really selected prior to us having to go into remote learning mode last spring. So there's no real differences in the course selection. I mentioned the survey results were focused on a return to learn plan. And then lastly, as was indicated in the report earlier, a lot of our professional learning activities are focused around helping teachers and staff with virtual and the high flex learning mode that we're in. So there's nothing other, there's really nothing startling that's any different in this report. It still captures many of the activities that our students are typically involved in. I know some of those are being provided remotely. Some of those are just not happening. So I know that our students are getting the full benefit of what they would get under a normal school year. And that's really all I have, unless you have questions on that report.
Hey, Mark, Bo here with a quick observation question. So the results are steady, the results are good. There is one interesting line that jumped up for me, and that's the 11th and 12th graders in EFA, EFE. And over a 2-year span, it looks like we've added about 100 11th and 12th graders in that. And do you or your team know offhand what is there something driving that, or is that just one of these random bumps that happens to be a bigger random bump? I was curious.
Yeah, there's been much more attention given to career technical education, over the last few years, especially as there's talk of a CTE center through KRESA. I don't know if that alone, or if there's a greater recognition that how valuable those programs are for students. So Bo, I don't have a specific answer for you. I will. I don't know if KRESA through their CTE staff does any surveying of their students to find out, what prompted that or what's changed in their minds. I don't want to put Dr. Pasco or Mr. Huber on the spot here, but if they're certainly welcome to chime in if they have anything beyond what I've said. It doesn't sound like it, so.
And well, I mean, Mark, I remember that part of the whole CTE initiative was kind of beefed up counseling and, something. I mean, so I'll just, maybe some of that has had time to develop and flow through. But anyway, I just thought that was notable and something to pause and recognize.
I see Mike Huber joined us here. Did you want to add something, Mike?
Not much other than what Bo just commented on, which is, the counseling components have been helpful, as well as how KRESA continues to market programs and continue to open those opportunities for the CTE programs. The students that started with a lot of the career pathways work that would happen in the middle school have now moved to the high school as well. So I imagine there's been some impact over the years of hosting the Career Expo down in Kalamazoo for the county. So I think some of those transitions have helped us increase the enrollment there that you're now seeing.
Good,
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I'm wondering too, we're doing more project-based learning at different levels, which really exposes students to some additional careers and pathways that they may not have been aware of before. So, maybe that cumulative effect of all that is causing that increase. So.
Mike, I'm wondering, what work is Amy Dimaggio doing? I know she's devoting some of her time is specifically geared toward KRESA and the CTE issue. So is there something special that she's working on with regard to that could have had impact on this?
There certainly could have been. I know she's hosted those career days in the doghouse up there that have kind of helped connect students to career pathways. That could certainly be the case. I don't know if any of the other points of reference are there, like elements that would connect students with IEPs or 504s into that program as well. I'm not sure. I need to go look at the data a little more closely for those 100 students, but I'm sure all of those things potentially have a collective impact on what's happened enrollment-wise.
Okay, thanks.
Mark, thank you for the report. Are there any other questions for Mark? Okay, then let's approve this monitoring report. Barb, this is a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kroll,
Yes.
Mr. Rathburn,
Yes.
Dr. Shelton Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Van Antwerp,
Yes.
Mrs. Novaria,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder.
Yes.
Very good. The monitoring report for NSPOSSE 1.2 is approved. And now we'll go to our action item this evening, which is to reconfirm the extended COVID-19 learning plan. There's a motion on page 22, please.
President Van Antwerp, I move that the Board of Education reconfirm the 2020-21 extended COVID-19 learning plan as presented.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second, please?
I'll second that kitty will second the motion. I'll second it too, Ray.
Is there any discussion? Okay, Barb, this is a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Rathburn,
Yes.
Dr. Shelton Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Van Antwerp,
Yes.
Mrs. Novaria,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Kroll.
Yes.
Thanks, Barb. Very good. The extended COVID-19 learning plan has been reconfirmed. And we now have two discussion items on our agenda. The first is project enhancements.
I'll take this one, given Ron's absence today. So we're recommending that the board approve a couple of bond funding projects. One being $456,000 for the Central High School student parking lot extension, and that's the parking lot that's directly west of the existing lots along Westnedge. It was the area that was used for our for staging for our construction projects. There were materials handling. There was a big mound of dirt there, and then it was also more recently used as a drop-off area for buses while our parking lots were being constructed. So we were planning on doing that project, and that's what our budget is for that. The second part of that is $400,000 that will be used at both Central Middle School and North Middle School to provide some security film for windows in targeted areas. So that total amounts to about $860,000 that will come from the 2019 bond fund from Proposal 1. So we did spend some time last year investigating the film, the bullet resistant window film in certain areas identified by our public safety officers. And, COVID, like with many other things, delayed that, but we're now in a position where we would like to bid that and get that project to completion. Same with the site work. Much of the base of that parking lot has been established already, and now is a good time to make that transition from the gravel lot that it is to something more permanent. We've been working with the site plan with the city and have final approval for the look of that regarding retention of surface water and such. So we're ready to go with those projects. We have not bid those out yet, but would like to have those bid. And we would, in order for us to do that, we would have to get approval from the board to allow us to spend funds that haven't been previously allocated to those projects, but there's still funds that are available that haven't been put up in the enhancement category yet because we haven't closed those project budgets out. So we are in pretty good shape that we're not going to be touching what the board sees already in the enhancement dollars. So this is really spending those out before they get placed up there. But we will be presenting a more comprehensive budget presentation to you that shows all of the changes that we're proposing. But we would like to move ahead on these two with your permission. So this is brought as a discussion item now, and then you can act on this at our regular meeting later this month. So I'll try to answer as many questions as I can in Ron's absence. All right. We'll bring that back to you next meeting. Thank you.
Thanks,
So
Mark.
the second discussion item is an update on technology. We've been keeping you appraised of some of the issues we've been facing here recently, and Dan and his team have been working tirelessly to try to find a solution to our problems. And I thought now would be a good time for Dan to talk about what they've been doing and some potential expenditures here that we'll be needing. So Dan, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. So yeah, we're still struggling. This problem is district-wide, although it does present itself more severely with our wireless systems at Central Middle School, North Middle School, and the administration building. We now have 2 outside engineers on retainer that are working with us on the problem. They haven't found anything yet or suggested that we try anything yet that we have not already looked at and or tried. But it is good to have a fresh set of eyes on the problem. We're going to keep pursuing that. One of those engineers is actually based out of Grand Rapids, and I expect him to be on site in person on Thursday to help us out. We've also ordered some additional hardware under an emergency purchase authorization through Mark's office to get us some equipment in place to completely bypass the equipment that we think is the problem. We're looking at probably 6 to 10 days before that all arrives and we can get it installed and up and running. We are pursuing this very aggressively. Obviously, it's an incredibly frustrating problem, especially for our staff and students at the middle schools as they're trying to, work through the high flex learning. But as Mark said, we're working out hard, and I can't give enough thanks to the technology team for all the efforts they've been putting in trying to get this taken care of. So with that, I will take any questions you might have.
Hey, Dan, this is Bo here. So that emergency equipment, if that ends up fixing the problem, can you just give us a sense of the ballpark of what that expenditure would be? Is that a 6-figure expenditure? Or
yeah, it would be about $180,000. Okay. If it doesn't fix the problem, we've got 2 solutions. We can either return the equipment to Dell for a refund, or we can actually deploy this gear in other locations in a district. The appliance we're trying to work around is pretty much the only appliance we have that we don't have a backup for. And so this purchase will actually give us that backup as well moving forward, which I think is a healthy place for the district to be. My anticipation is that we'll be able to use ESSER funds to cover the costs of this gear as well. So that'll help protect the general fund.
Thank you, Dan.
Hey, Dan, this is Terry. I just want to say thank you to you for your diligent work on this. I know it's got to be really frustrating. You seem really cool, calm, and collected, and I'm happy to see that. And I hope that people are being kind to you and understanding that this is a hard problem and it's nobody's fault. So just keep up the good work, and thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you, Terry.
That's for sure, Dan, and we appreciate the update tonight. Thank you. We've reached the end of our agenda, so I'd like to thank everybody for their time, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.